Okay, this will be the second video of this Dingo I've been working on. I got some neat things I've done to it to alleviate some problems and fix some things, and I'll go over and show some things that I've been doing to this to get it to where I'm at right now. The only thing left on this go-kart is putting a gas tank on it, which would be somewhere in a similar position to where it was once at before. The problem I had with the way these motors were designed for this style of go-kart is that it would hit the back of the seat. And so with that problem, I come up with a solution. I'll take you over here and I'll show you. The mount that the motor sits on, you need a little slots, which is right here to adjust. The motor can slide back and forth to adjust the chain. I had one of these little plates laying around, so I took some 2-inch angle iron. You can see right here. I used a chop saw and cut 2 notches in on each side. Then took this and welded it. You can see my chicken poop welding. And welded 2 pieces like this facing apart from each other. The reason I did that is to get the motor up and also to get it back further. These Dingos are short and there's a lot of clearance problems in the regular ones to hitting the seat right there. With that, you can see a picture right here. That is a J-bolt. The screw right there fits right against this piece of metal that runs, see my hand, right in there. And also you can see it right there. It's probably actually better to see right there. The bolt, kind of J-bolts, it just fits right underneath that little piece of metal right there and locks it in place. But on the back, I was able to slide this back and use U-bolts. And as you can see, I like to put lock nuts on everything. And I hooked it onto the tube back here. Now you can see the motor is behind the center line. Normally I don't do that to keep weight in the center of a go-kart, but because this one is so short and it just pushes you forward, that's the reason why I did that. Having it back like this, you can see right there I got a lot of adjustments still to adjust the chain. I had a lot of trouble getting the chain adjusted, or actually putting it together. I'm having trouble finding good tools to work with as far as chain braking and stuff like that. The one I use, which would be right over here, is from Harbor Freight. This is my second one, and I've had to put 2 of them together to actually work on the chains. This little piece there where my finger is a little bit too big, and it jams inside the areas. Also, that little hole right there is too big also. That needs to be smaller. I've had to put 2 of these together to get one that would actually work. And usually, I have to take a pin drift and run it through here to get this middle piece out that I'm emphasizing right there. That's the reason why it's too big. Next week, I may try to take this piece to a machine shop and see if they can't knock it down 2/1000ths. I like to put graphite lube on the threads and stuff like this to make sure it doesn't jam up. Like I said, I had to take 2 of these to build one good one, and still they're very hard to work with. And I've yet to find one of these that I really like. The thing is, the reason why I use the Harbor Freight one is that they're the only ones out there that I can find right now. But let me go back and show you some other stuff that I did on the go-kart. Like I said, you can see the motor has got set back quite a bit. With the seat now in place, you can see I'm using just regular old shelf brackets. And that's to hold the seat in place. You can see it's sturdy. The 2 bars that come down around here, I've got, this looks cheesy, but it works good. The front part of the seat is made of 2x4s, and it's kind of flopped up because the way it's sitting on the sawhorse. And I got my throttle cable hooked in. Yeah, it looked cheesy, but it works. The exhaust pipe I got wrapped because you never want to bump into that. You notice that everything is painted black. At one time I worked selling used cars, and with that you learn a little bit about black paint covers a multitude of sins. And so that's why you use the heck out of black paint. I worked on the chain quite a bit, as you can see. As you can see and hear, you don't hear it binding. You don't hear it raising cane. A good chain will turn quiet like this. And that lets you know that there's no binding, there's no problems. And you can see I can turn the wheel fairly easily. That lets you know that everything's in line and everything's put together right. And this is quite a bit of weight as far as the wheels and tires and that big old goofy looking sprocket there. It has quite a bit of flywheel effect, and that's not good. But this thing, you get in the mid-range and upper end, it runs real good. The brake, I'll show you a little bracket I made. A little bracket right here is to keep this brake pad in place, because when you hit the brake, it likes to slide. You can see it sliding a little bit. That's what keeps it in place, and that was a big problem I had with this go-kart. And the factory had it designed like this, and there was really no way other to fix it than the way I did it. And all I did was drill a hole, and had to grind some off this bracket right here, and then a little bit off the edge right there, so it wouldn't rub the bell part of the brake. And it works. So the gas tank, I've got some mounting holes right here. We're mounted somewhere right here. Keep away from that. I know you're looking at this and you're wondering, what the devil is this? This is what I've been real successful with. I'll make some sort of a guard. I've used these in the past and they worked out real well. See, it'll work out as a guard. You take them old refrigerator shelves and make a guard over your stuff like that. Because if a kid or somebody comes up here and gets their finger in between that chain and that sprocket, the finger's coming off. I've seen it happen before. And it's not pretty. When you work on go-karts and stuff like that, you got to consider that kids don't know a lot, and so that's how they get hurt. The brake is actuated by a bar. That worked out real good. I hooked up the throttle cable, and you can notice that there is a lot of zip ties to hold the cable in place. That is a trick right there to keep your idle and the throttle control in good sync. If the cable don't move, then you're not going to be adjusting your idle and other stuff like that. The pedals are all done. I'll try to figure out something on the gas tank. You noticed that I use a fairly good size fuel filter. I had another gas tank that was on this thing. That's an important thing to use. If I could advise anything on these motors, is actually use a plastic tank. The metal tanks rust. Gas does not keep metal from rusting, and that keeping good gas and changing oil once a year. I use synthetic oils in these, and they run like a top. This is an Intech Briggs & Stratton motor. One thing that I wish that this had that the Chinese motors do have is a rev limiter, and this one doesn't have one. And I wish they would have something like this. They're a pretty good quality motor. You can get them for around $300 on sale, and they tend to hold in there pretty good. The rubber components on the Briggs & Stratton is a lot better than the Chinese motors, but they do share a lot of the similar stuff. Now, when I had this built in the past, I had because this took a lot to take off, I had a Comet clutch on there that was a high stall and it had roller bearings. And I paid a pretty penny for it. And I wanted it to live. And I put a old refrigerator fan right here to draw air across that clutch. And that thing lived for 5 years, and it's still a good clutch. The two things that made it live was, number one, the fan, drawing air across it, and number two, this big sprocket. Because of the 7.25 to 1 ratio from here to here, made this low enough to where the motor had enough torque to take off. And that's where you burn up clutches, is that if it's geared too high, you burn up clutches. You know, everybody's always afraid to gear it too low. Around the yard, you're never going to gear it too low. If all you ever do is 10 miles an hour and it's wrapped out, so what? You know, nobody's going to get out on the yard or out on the street with a go-kart and a mini bike and do 50 miles an hour. That's silly. You need to have good pulling power while you're at a decent RPM. And like I said, that's what burns up them clutches. You can see my tires, I grooved them. These are plain old, not tractor tires, they're lawnmower tires. Now I put the sideways grooves in here to give it traction, side traction, because this thing, when it was put together before, liked to slide out. Actually, these tires was on this thing, and it liked to slide out, and so when I put these grooves on there, it cut that problem out. With the front tires, it'll have good traction. The back tires, it may spin, I don't know. It's not going to be around long enough to really experiment much with. But on these 6.5 horse, I like the size 41 chain. That's pretty much the one that I use the most. And I'm going to pan back and call it good on this one. Like I said, I only got fuel tank and maybe that guard, and that's about it. And that'll close on this one.